Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Bardenstein, and I'm the CTO and co-founder of Manifest. I apologize that I can't be with you in person to present today, but I hope you'll enjoy this pre-recorded session and a little bit of a demo. On behalf of Manifest, it's been an honor to be part of the Silicon Valley Innovation Program and build with such amazing partners and other cohort members alongside DHS S&T. It's been a pleasure of ours to help build in support of this amazing mission. So with that, we're going to talk a little bit today about what we've been building to help secure our software supply chain across the federal government using software bills of materials, aka SBOMs. So let's dive in. The key problem is, as we all know, is software is becoming more and more prevalent around our society. It underlies most of our critical infrastructure, from our hospitals to our power grid to how we do water distribution to transportation. But the reality is that very few of us actually know what's inside the technology. When we buy, whether it's IoT from vendors or software that goes into all of these things from various companies, how do we actually know how secure and resilient this technology is, and how much could it actually put our security, our data, or even our lives at risk? And at the same time, we see adversaries going after targeting more supply chain attacks. Because it's much more effective for them to, rather than expend a bunch of resources to just infiltrate one company's or one agency's network, if they go after a particular upstream piece of software that everybody uses, now they're able to access thousands of agencies or companies just by being able to exploit one piece of code that probably doesn't have an enterprise security team. And one of the most prominent examples, as we can all remember from a couple of years ago, was the Log4Shell vulnerability that caused an estimated $10 billion in damages. The sad truth of it is that most agencies and private sector companies are barely more prepared to respond to this type of vulnerability than they were 3 years ago. We all remember the 3 months of hair on fire phone calls and emails and Excel spreadsheets. And if this were to happen again, few agencies would be much better prepared. And specifically, there's a big gap around our understanding around open source software that's being used in all the technology that we're buying. And this is software that anybody can access, anybody can use, anyone can contribute to. And it behooves us and the federal government especially to be able to understand what is our open source footprint, who's contributing to this open source code, how much do we trust it, and what are things that we might want to look out for threats. So for those not familiar, let's talk a little about the SBOM, though there's lots of good content out there on YouTube if you want to learn more. The software bill of materials we often liken to an ingredients list for technology. It lists out the list of software dependencies, versions of identifiers that help organizations get a better sense of transparency and risk in the software that they build and buy. Federal agencies can, and many of them have, started to require SBOMs from other software vendors. And through OMB M2218, agencies now have to require secure software attestation forms from those vendors, which is another artifact of software transparency. And this can be very valuable, but only if you operationalize SBOMs. If you have a bunch of these ugly files just sitting around in a Teams folder or a SharePoint, it's not actually going to make your enterprise much safer. Once you get the SBOM, the question you really have to ask yourself is, what do I do with it? How do I turn this into meaningful risk reduction for me and the rest of my agency? And that's exactly what we built at Manifest. We're building a platform that helps organizations from their CSCRM teams to their vulnerability management teams to their procurement teams, an easy way to collect SBOMs from their vendors, generate SBOMs for their internal code, scan and enrich that data from various third-party sources of vulnerabilities, exploitation, etc., visualize this data in an intuitive, meaningful way, and then help users figure out what to do next, not just tell them what's wrong. We've also started to do this for the secure software development attestation forms that federal agencies are now forced to require from their vendors. How do we make it easy for their vendors to sign and upload these forms, and then for the agencies to get these forms, review them, approve them or deny them, and store them and attach SBOMs to them for future analysis? We have already deployed to various agencies on federal civilian as well as DoD, but we are also ready to deploy across the federal government. We are IL5 compliant. We meet FedRAMP High technical criteria, and we also have SOC 2 Type 2, 800-171, and other common requirements for security and assurance. And in the remaining time, I'm going to do a very quick demo of the product. So if we pretend, for example, that I'm a CSCRM person, I get an SBOM from a vendor, I can quickly drag and drop it into Manifest without having to write any code. I can take that ugly JSON file, present it in a way that's much more intuitive for me to understand. I can look at the vulnerabilities, whether it's high or low risk, and I can look at all the list of vulnerabilities that might concern me and take action. For example, if some vulnerabilities aren't actually exploitable or applicable, and we don't need to go patch them or worry about them, I can mark it as such and save that as a VEX file and build a knowledge base around vulnerability management internally. I can also save a list of components or dependencies in the software and see a version history to see whether versions of the software have gotten more or less secure over time. I can also easily export this SBOM into a human readable, a custom formatted report or the raw JSON that I can share with leadership or others as needed. We also try to make this data navigable for people who are already drowning in vulnerabilities. What are the most recent vulnerabilities? What are the most critical vulnerabilities? What are the riskiest assets in my environment? Or how can I take 500 of my top vulnerabilities and quickly identify the most urgent one to work on? And how do I get all that information collated and presented to me in an easy way? So for example, here, looking at the log4j vulnerability, I can see exactly the assets, first and third party, that I need to remediate and that are affected by this vulnerability. So in a matter of clicks, I've been able to do things that took me 3 months to do years ago. I can see fix information. I can again create reports to share with leadership around critical vulnerabilities. I can create tickets in my ticketing system to assign tasks to other folks. So Manifest has helped me automate in a couple of clicks what it used to take me weeks or months to do to get transparency in my vendor technology and also respond to potential critical vulnerabilities. And that's my time. So thank you very much. Here's my email if you'd like to reach out afterwards. And again, apologies for not being able to join in person. I hope everyone enjoys the demo week.